I've had several things published. If you want to get published and you're not in New York or some publishing mecca, I was in Portland, Oregon at the time. Send your stuff into erotica anthologies. They have open calls for submissions, and they're always looking for new writers. This was back in 2003. So I thought, okay, I've never written an erotica story, but I was writing an erotic novel. So what I did was I extracted a scene from the novel and just created this small story, but I didn't think it would get published. I basically sent to this anthology, which I'm not going to name, a Latino erotica story and a non-specific, just gay erotica story. Because they were accepting more than one submission, and they didn't take the Latino one, they took the non-specific one. So I thought, okay, at least I've got a foot in the door here, but my immediate Latino voice wasn't accepted. So then I self-published my first novel. It was like 150 copies. I was basically, doing the DIY, selling them wherever I could, hustling them to friends, just to start getting feedback on my writing, because I had spent years and years just sitting in my room and writing and reading and studying. I didn't finish college or anything like that. I'm mostly self-educated. Then it became an obsession. Then I started publishing. I've had about 5 erotica stories published. But then I stopped doing that because I didn't want to get pigeonholed as a Latino erotica writer. It was starting to go that way. So I ditched that, and then all of this stuff started happening, and I thought, okay, now that I've worked with some editors and I have a little bit of experience in getting published, I want to start pursuing publishing projects, whether I decide to spearhead them or whether I'm just a contributor. And it's gone that way because, all of this is important. Going and doing the readings is important. Promoting your books, all of that is important. But when we're all gone, it's our work that will be left behind. And I don't mean that from an egocentric point of view, but who knows if things are going to get better? We don't know where things are going to go with the way the world is going. There's going to be some kid, a boy, girl, whoever they are, who in 20, 30, 50 years is going to start accessing literature, going into the archives and finding things and trying to figure out what their identity is all about and who came before them and what their stories and situations were. And they're going to find those things in books, in anthologies, and novels, and poetry collections. That's the record that gets left behind. That's how people are going to know about us and all of our lives. And everybody here seems really interesting and sincere and a good person. And if you don't publish, people just won't know. And I don't care about just publishing my work. I love to see my work published because it means that either I've refined it to the point where I'm confident with it, or someone else had faith in it and decided to publish it. But also helping new and emerging writers to get their work published, because then they get the bug. Then like I saw J. Sky Cabrera publish something, and now Mary Rodriguez, all these young queer Latino writers I met through the New York City Latino Writers Group are now starting to publish, self-publish, however they can publish their work. And that's how these books, that's sort of the thrust that needs to happen for these books to emerge out of thin air. Otherwise, they don't, so.
Yeah, Sarah.
Well,
You can talk about your paths.
this is my first book. It just came out I received it the day after my birthday. It's a long process, and the first work I had published was from a classmate. He worked at City College, and he did an anthology of Latino writers in the U.S., and it got me hyped. I'm like, okay, so, and people, some readings, comments, feedback, it was great. And then a couple of short stories, I just went to Spain one time, and I spent the summer in Madrid, and I stayed in this neighborhood that's full of immigrants, so I'm always walking around meeting people. And one of the things that I met this guy who was doing a book about the neighborhood, so I'm like, oh really? I'm writing a short story about my experience here. I sent it to him, and it got published there. And then in Argentina, and then the anthology, it's kind of like lead work and walking around. And this one, it's been sitting on my computer, the manuscript, for almost 10 years. And I said, no, on my 40th, I'm going to do it myself. and I sent it to a couple of places, but nobody picked it up. It's poetry, and I don't know, maybe nobody wants to hear, but I want people to, you know, hear what I have to say anyway, so I did it myself. So and now I feel more confident to be in different groups and different collectives, because when, you know, when you have your own book, whether it's published, whichever way, I think it has a little more, more weight, or it's a different level, or maybe you're taking a little more seriously. So, it's kind of that.
Now, Karen, you haven't published?
No, I'm not necessarily there.
And you were in Best of Pen, right? Do you want to publish, or what's, or do you, because let me just say, I recently spoke to a spoken word artist, and he was talking about publishing through Rob. And he said he was feeling ambivalent because he feels that his work needs to be heard, not read.
Rob was in a
Oh, no, I think that my work translates well to the page. Who said it? I think it was Igor Gary that said, no, it was Bob Holman actually that said, once you hear someone read a poem, you'll always read that poem in their voice. Like you'll hear their voice in your head. So there's this ownership that goes along with that. I just honestly, the reason that for me I haven't put anything together at this time, the biggest issue for me has been sort of time and putting, you know, like you said, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and effort to put that in there, and I have not been able to sort of carve that out, you know.
But in your defense, you're working on your PhD.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be done by July, and then I can
Then
start
no
thinking-
excuses.
Then there isn't that excuse, and I'll be able to sort of move forward.
And again, you want to share any of your attempts at publishing? I know you've had two, we just mentioned having another one.
Right, and so I have another one coming out. I think it's rough. I mean, I think with the publishing houses that are publishing, I know that like it just sometimes it can't happen. It doesn't go as smoothly as people plan. You know, like with the other person that I'm publishing with Poto. I mean, just his own personal life came up, and he's the only one editing it, so like it has to get put on the back burner. You know, I mean, it's there and it's ready, and as soon as he's able to. I mean, but there are so many things. I mean, and he's self-publishing also. So I mean, when a person self-publishes an anthology, it's compared to like a bigger publishing company. You know, that's where things get backed up also. As far as like publishing for myself, I think that like my work kind of does need to be published. Like it needs to be seen. I mean, the way that I write too is very much like, I don't know why it was, but just the way it's written on the page, there's something to it. It's about borders, and it's about, you know, this word doesn't go with this word, it goes here, and so I think that there is some, right, it's very visual, you know, and then I play a lot with like English, Spanish cognates, you know, and so trying to figure out, is it supposed to be read in English or in Spanish? So I think that that's important. I think it's a matter of like just trying to find a place to get published. Other than like print publishing, there's also like online publishing that is happening a lot more too. I mean, doing your own blog. My whole thing, my apprehension about doing a blog is then a lot of people that ask to publish, like once it's on a blog, well, that's been published, so you can't use that again. So that's kind of my apprehension about like, well, if I put it in a blog, then other people can see it, but then I can't send it to get published. So it's kind of like a catch-22, like where you get stuck. And so I find myself kind of just like hoarding as much as I can of my own work to kind of like someday when I do send it out, like it hasn't been seen, it hasn't been read. And so that's part of like where I'm coming from with the
But
publishing.
it's good to publish one or two pieces,
Right.
one then different things, because I think the ratio used to be, that's probably changed, but you know, a third to a quarter of the pieces having been published previously gives a manuscript weight, as long as most of it has.
Right.
That's an important thing. I'm going to break the wall of moderator and share it with me, because I think one of the things when I first tried to start shopping around